o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. Welcome to the first July meeting of the Ballston Spa Village Board of Trustees. We're glad to have 10 residents in attendance tonight. It's always nice to see people join us. We appreciate your coming. First order of business is the pledge to the flag. I'm going to mute everybody. And please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now everyone is unmuted again and we're into the meeting, and the first order of business is the minutes of our meeting of June 22nd. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? If not,
there was one thing where it said that I would like residents to hire a registered arborist. I don't believe I stated that. I thought it was part of the tree law. So, and we still need to clarify that. I think that the tree law has the provision in it that if you're going to take a tree down, you've got to use a registered arborist.
did the clerk get that addition?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, that's
So
all.
that will reflect that Trustee Cormos believed that the regulations required that.
Yes.
Any other corrections or additions to the minutes? Could I have a motion that they be approved as amended?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I guess I have to second.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Thank you. Any discussion? All in
No.
favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Next order of business is mayor announcements, and I have several announcements tonight. It's been a busy couple of weeks. First of all, for the board's information, DPW did post houses that had yard debris in the street. As you know, yard debris or loose debris pickup ended after Memorial Day weekend, and everything has to be bagged from now until fall cleanup that starts on October 15th. So DPW posted notices in the houses that had debris in the street, loose debris in the street, asking them to put it in bags or remove it. Number two, the pool opened successfully on July 1st, following all COVID-19 guidelines. And it's good to see the kids enjoying and using the facility. It is going well as far as I can tell. We have to limit the occupancy and do other sorts of things that we don't ordinarily have to do, but it seems to be going well and the kids are enjoying having that pool available to them. I have also received questions about opening the playground in Kelly Park. It is currently closed to allow some repair work to be done that needed to be completed before we could let kids use it. Once that's done, it's up to the village whether to open it or not. The state has left it up to the individual municipalities whether to open playgrounds as they did with pools. I've discussed it with DPW, and obviously there's no way for us to keep it disinfected or to regulate its use. So some municipalities are posting signs saying that you use at your own risk. Not disinfected regularly, please use hand sanitizer and so forth and so on. And some are choosing to leave them closed. I personally think it's difficult to leave it closed because people can get in if they want to. And I think we should post the signs and allow it to be used.
Yeah.
Any other opinions?
As long as we don't have the liability if we have the signs up.
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes good sense, yes.
Okay. we will proceed. I'm not sure how long the repairs are going to take, but whenever they're done, we'll proceed to open it. I attended the initial Zoom meeting of the Committee on the Arts. They were a little slow to get started because of the COVID stuff, but they did have their initial meeting and we discussed their charge, and I thanked them for volunteering to serve. It's a good group. They were excited about the potential for their committee's work, and I think they're off to a good start. Next, I received a retirement letter from Tom McDonough, full-time police officer in the police force. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to work as a police officer in the village of Ballston Spa. As we have discussed, I have decided to retire and resign from my position as full-time officer. I'm providing 2 weeks notice, and my last work week will be the week ending July 18th. Thank you, Thomas P. McDonough. As you know, we already had one part-time line in the police department already vacant. So this creates a second vacancy, one full-time and one part-time. I've discussed those replacements with Chief Bush, and I expect to appoint replacements at the next board meeting, bring us back up to full staffing. Next, I've asked the Treasurer's Office to begin the monthly year-to-date expenditure reports. I would like the board to receive those every month to reflect expenditures through the end of the month before. That has not been done for the last several years. We did it sporadically this past year, trying to get up to speed. This year, I would like it to be done every month. Because it takes a while to close the books at the end of each month, I'm expecting that we'll receive those reports in time for the second meeting of the month that follows. So the Treasurer's Office is working right now on the report for the end of June. And I expect that you'll receive it before our next meeting and have an opportunity to make any comments or observations you wish. And after that, that should be a regular monthly occurrence. I did get a draft of it today. I did see some glitches that I went over with the Deputy Treasurer. I'm sure that there'll be additional glitches as we move forward, but there were relatively few of them, and I think we'll probably be able to get them straightened out fairly quickly. And that will provide us considerably better information on a month-to-month basis than has been available for the past several years.
Excellent,
So
excellent.
that's progress.
Excellent.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
And speaking of our next meeting, the governor's office has issued a couple of updates. Number one, the executive order prohibiting in-person public meetings expired June 1st. So there's no longer a prohibition against in-person public meetings. A second executive order allowing remote meetings, such as we're having now, was most recently extended until August 5th. But at this point, that order expires August 5th. So unless there's a further extension, July 27th will be our last Zoom meeting, and August 10th will be our first in-person meeting after the shutdown. This will require 50% capacity. It'll require wearing face masks, social distancing, and heightened cleaning and disinfecting regulations for the meeting space. So all of this complicates the job of the librarians and the cleaners as we meet in the meeting room at the library. I would ask Trustee Fitzpatrick, as the liaison to the library, to discuss these issues with the library director and help me establish appropriate protocols in anticipation of our need to start meeting there again on August 10th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a library board meeting tomorrow, and it's on the agenda. But the problem is going to be that the room that's used, the community room that's being used, and I'll have to talk to them about this. The community room that's being used is also where they're placing some of the library materials, you know, for a short period of quarantine. So we'll talk all through that. And and then get back to you. There would be like a cleaning procedure or something that could be done before each one of these meetings, or?
Yeah, I think we'll have to disinfect before and after. We'll have
Okay.
DPW can continue to do the setup, but the setup will be a bit different because of social distancing.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
I think that's our only option unless the governor extends the executive order allowing us to meet remotely, because we certainly can't meet in the village hall. Social distancing in that space would allow, it'd be tough to get the board in there, much less anybody else. So I appreciate the library's willingness to work with us and make this possible.
How are we going to deal with the 50% occupancy if more than that show up?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I think there's
Yeah.
more guidance coming. I'm working with the municipality where they can't even fit their own board in the hall. So I think you're going to see more guidance coming down, or an extension of the order.
And the remote meetings, Larry, just so I get this straight for the meeting tomorrow, supposedly, unless it's extended, we're not allowed to have a remote meeting beyond August 1?
August 5th.
August 5th, okay.
Yep. But our next scheduled meeting after July is August 10th. So that'll be after that deadline passes.
Okay.
So we'll work through it as best we can, as we have been doing for quite some while now.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I received the annual stormwater report today, but it had an error in it, so I had to send it back for correction. The correction should be fairly simple, so I expect it back quickly. I had previously scheduled the public hearing on that report for July 27th because I thought we were going to get it in June, but it must be posted by state law on our website for 30 days prior to the public hearing and the board vote. So assuming that we get it back this week and post it on the website, I'm going to reschedule that public hearing for August 24th. And last but not least, we've all heard about issues with our zoning code for quite some while now. We've heard those from the zoning board, the planning board, the applicants, the village attorney, and a variety of other sources. Our codes are badly outdated and in need of revision. The economic development report, the draft of which we received last month, called for the mayor to immediately appoint a committee to review the code. I think this is a considerable job. It takes sometimes years and quite a lot of resources to completely redo a municipal code. And I think we're going to have to take this slowly and do it in steps. I think this is a complicated task and much more than could be required by a simple committee in one fell swoop. So for the first step, I have asked Attorney Ferradino, whose specialty, fortunately for us, happens to be planning and zoning law, to review our current zoning code, mark it up, and to work with a small group of people with experience with our code to identify issues and propose a plan for moving forward. I would note that this is an ad hoc mayoral committee that does not require board approval. But I did want, as a courtesy, to let everybody know what we're doing as the first step in moving forward. And so with that in mind, I would like to read to you the revised charge for that committee that I intend to give them after tonight's meeting. Mayor's Ad Hoc Committee to review zoning regulations, July 13, 2020. Chairman, Rory O'Connor, Planning Board Chair. Members, Paul Lasky, Zoning Board Chair. Tina Mangino Coffey, Business Representative. Mike McNamara, Planning Board Member. And Anna Stanko, Zoning Board Member. I thought it essential that the Zoning Board and Planning Board chairs be represented. I wanted an additional member of the Zoning Board and the Planning Board. And Mike brings expertise in engineering and has appeared before many planning and zoning boards. So I thought he would be good in recognizing what's sort of typical and acceptable and what's irregular. And Anna Stanko, of course, is a long-term member of the zoning board and has probably more experience dealing with zoning issues than just about anybody else. Tina Mangino, as you know, has a 30+ year history of trying to develop the downtown in Ballston Spa as a property owner and a business owner, and as one of the founders of the Business and Professional Association. So I thought that of everybody I could pick for that 5th slot, she would probably bring the best perspective and the best historical view. The consultants to the committee are Stephanie Ferradino, our village attorney, and Dave LaFountain, our village building inspector. The charge to the committee. The purpose of the committee is to review current village zoning regulations to recommend potential changes. Much of the current zoning code suffers from a lack of clarity, internal consistency, missing definitions, and outdated language not conforming to current standards. Recommendations on such issues may take the form of specific changes proposed for immediate action. In addition, the committee is asked to identify areas of the regulations that merit further in-depth review for potential substantive changes. The target end date is November 1st, 2020. The product will be a written report to the mayor. The mayor will then propose to the board a plan for moving forward from that point. Ultimately, any changes to the code require public notice, public hearing, and formal action by the Board of Trustees. The work plan is threefold. Number one, the village attorney will prepare an annotated analysis of current regulations, identifying sections of the code that are unusual, atypical, or possibly not consistent with our economic development plan. The committee will review and discuss these issues, and the attorney will be available for consultation as requested by the committee. The building inspector will also be available on an as-needed basis throughout the process. Phase 2, the committee will consult broadly with various interested factions in the community, including but not limited to the zoning and planning boards, the BSBPA, local business owners and property owners, and village residents. A list of meeting dates and attendees will be kept as part of the record. And number 3 of the work plan, the committee will deliberate on the results of the above 2 activities in composing recommendations to the mayor. The committee may choose to use the zoning regulations of other small municipalities as a model for any new language proposed. So I will send this charge out to the members of those committees, of that committee tomorrow. I've already received from Attorney Ferradino some annotated notes on the code, and we'll get them started and hopefully hear back from them in the fall.
Couple of things, if I may. Larry, you're
Yes.
saying that, you're not asking for approval for this committee? You're saying you're
Correct.
breaking with some precedent in the past where the board approved the committee in the past? So on, the Revenue Advisory Committee, the Parking Committee, all had, were approved by the board, and also had, more members from different areas, like specific retail entities, residents, and so if I may, on what basis are you establishing this committee without, without our approval, by the board?
I think you're describing the process that I envision us using moving forward in the later phases of this zoning review. What I'm trying to do right now is to come up with a list of things that need attention. The mayor does have the authority to appoint ad hoc committees at his will, and I'm taking advantage of that authority to appoint this committee to organize things and get the process moving for us. I anticipate that if the board then chooses to appoint committees for specific issues or follow-up actions or studies, we would do that in the normal fashion.
May I ask where it gives you the authority to do ad hoc committees? There's nothing in our zone, in our code. And I was looking at the, state village law, and, it says here, the Board of Trustees may create or abolish by resolution offices, boards, agencies, and commissions, and delegate to such offices, boards, agencies, and commissions so much of its powers, duties, and functions as it deemed necessary for effectuating or administrating the Board of Trustees' duties and functions. I see this as delegating to this committee the function of reviewing the zoning and making recommendations. I clearly see this as something that should be acted upon, by the board.
I disagree.
Which
I see
section
this
are you
committee as
reading?
advisory to the mayor. I'm asking them to report to me. I'm asking them to recommend to me things that need to be looked at, things that need to be done moving forward. I will then bring that to the board and we'll move forward as you describe.
I have a real objection to this. I don't think that this committee is wide enough, including enough voices, if you will. It's very much, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's very much the older, vision of the village, or people who are involved in the bit, which to their credit, they've hung in with us, and that's a good thing. But I think we also need some people in terms of what should be looking at. I think we need fresh eyes, and I think we need a wider array of people involved in this. What you're going to see is only what they see. Whereas I think if you had maybe more residents, maybe retail businesses, somebody actually from the Business and Professional Association directly, I think you'd get a different point of view, and I think that's a better and more transparent process. The other thing I want to know is, are there meetings going to be held, and is the public going to be allowed at these meetings?
I don't know the answer to that question. They're not required to by law. I'd like to address your first point first, though. I don't think we need a cast of thousands to tell us what the problems are with our code. We might need a cast of thousands with a variety of perspectives to help us figure out what the solutions to those problems are. But I think we can rely on our council, who has tremendous experience in this, to work with people who have experience dealing with it in the past, to identify the issues that need to be addressed. And that's my goal in this first stage of the process.
Well, I resent somewhat it's suggesting that I'm asking for a cast of thousands. I'm just asking for a more inclusive group and a more transparent process, which I think that is I think that's a very reasonable request.
And I called NICOM, and they said that this committee, as a committee, has to follow open meeting law. There's no allowing a committee to be formed and not function under open meeting laws. So
I will refer that to the village attorney, and we'll be happy to do anything that's required to be done.
No, I feel this is a bad start. Zoning is one of the most important issues to taxpayers and residents and stakeholders in the community. I think you should start out with an open, inclusive process, allow more people to be at the table, and to allow open comment, because there is a lot of parts of the zoning code, but for this very small select group to pick which one should be looked at, I think is wrong.
And it has tremendous impact. And my main concern is just residents. It has tremendous impact on residents, and there's no voice for any residents. I think that there's there are developers, there are some business people, and the residents, you know, they're paying the bills and they've been doing it for years. So I think possibly they should have, not possibly, definitely they should have some voice.
Yeah, I think the
committee will
example of
consult-
parking
committee will
committee that
consult-
we,
The committee will consult broadly with various interested factions in the community, including but not limited to zoning and planning boards, the Business and Professional Association, local business owners and property owners, and village residents.
Yeah, well, you know the old saying, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're the meal. So, you know,
I
you
think
have a
it's-
seat at the table. So I don't quite think that is as important as actually having somebody on the committee. I'm sorry, Liz, go ahead.
oh, well, I'm saying a good example was under the Romano administration was the parking committee, which dealt very efficiently with the off-street parking in the central business district. And as you know, I petitioned you to reconstitute that committee, which had 2 people from the planning board, 2 from the zoning board, 2 from business, BSBPA included, 2 real estate developers, and 2 residents. And that, yes, it was a larger committee, but the fact was that not everybody showed up to every meeting anyways, and to have such a small committee, there's going to be problem, you know, with if one person can't make it, then the discussion, or 2 people can't make it, you know, end up with very few voices at the table. So I think this committee has to be rethought.
And
To
that's a perfect
start out
example of a
at the
committee
beginning.
that was appointed to study a specific issue that had been identified as needing study. And
Right,
what we're
and so
doing now
that
is we're
small
trying to
piece,
identify those issues.
that small piece, I think, had a better committee than this, which will be dealing with a lot more of the zoning code.
I don't think they are going to be dealing with the whole zoning code. So I've already done my component of this and I've marked up almost every page. And I think the result is going to be that they're going to look and say, you know, gee, our zoning code area variance provisions don't apply current law. So that needs to be redone. And that'll be on the list. And it'll be another thing on the list. I don't think they're creating policy. I think they're identifying issues. If I'm
Exactly.
If they're,
reading
I mean,
this.
it looks to me as if you've already done that work.
This would make sense.
Well, you've done that work. What are the area? What is this committee going to do? Are they going to propose a change in the setbacks?
I
Or
don't
where
think that's in their
something applies.
charge. I think their charge is to like, look at our definitions. Do they agree with my interpretation that there are a lot of definitions in here that don't make any sense, shouldn't be included, should be revised, should be updated? And so that might be a line, redo definitions. I don't think it's each and every, there's no way they could get all of the issues spotted and solutions by the fall. It's
So if they're not
a
coming
task.
up to solutions, all they're going to do is say these need to be changed. They're not going to recommend a change.
I think they're issue spotting, but the mayor did the charge, so I think it's issue
Yeah,
spotting.
I just don't feel comfortable with what the process you've outlined. I think it's narrow and not inclusive,
I agree.
my opinion.
Okay, your objections are noted. Thank you very much. Moving on to old business. The first item of old business was a report on traffic issues from Trustee Raymond. He was unable to be with us tonight. He alerted me this morning that he had some personal business come up and will not be here tonight, and therefore I'm postponing this item on the agenda until our July 27th meeting. However, I would note that I did meet with Sheriff Zerlo, as I announced at the last meeting that I was going to. And he tells me that county sheriff's officers can ticket trucks in the village as long as the proper signage exists. And he expressed doubt that the proper signage exists necessarily in all the places that it needs to. And so I will be meeting with the police chief and the DPW head to discuss these signage issues and to work on resolving them during the interim. And then we'll have Trustee Raymond's report at our next meeting.
If I might interject at this point, I had a question for Stephanie on, the explanation that we could not, raise the fines for trucks being on roads, where they are prohibited, where there are signs. And I did a little digging into our code and discovered that we have a traffic violations bureau, which allows the court to prosecute traffic violations that are in the village. But under vehicles and traffic, chapter 192, it says traffic legislation is currently under review and will be included when they come up. There's nothing there. And if you look at other towns, they have a chapter where it lays out things like weight limits, trucks over 4 tons, are prohibited. They have the list of roads, they have everything. And I believe they can then set the fines for those violations. Am I correct?
I believe you are correct. There's no easy answer. If there was an easy answer, I would have given it to you months ago. I have been round and round and round with NICOM about this. Having those provisions in your code provides strength and authority on an issue which is pretty complex. So, again, this is yet another area where, the code honestly should just be redone start to finish. I think, the mayor is attempting to bite off what he can chew with starting with the zoning. But honestly, we ought to be going chapter by chapter and really revamping this. This represents a code that, might have been enacted a couple of decades ago and has not kept up.
Yeah, the date on the Traffic Violations Bureau is May 1999. But I think this issue, particularly with trucks on, there's nothing written anywhere where it says these roads, are weight limited. So I don't know how those signs appeared, who decided to put them on which roads, how any of that works. But it is a major issue, as you know. And so I'd like maybe, I don't know, another committee, whatever, to take a look at addressing some of those issues so that we can take some action.
Yeah, and the other complicating factor is that you've got state roads, you have federal roads, some are county roads, and so you don't actually have authority over much other than the village roads and what you do there. And so figuring out which roads are which might be something that Trustee Raymond can help us with, so that we can look at solutions for the specific areas where there's the most problem.
Well, I think it's a very good point, Liz, in that we have many, many, many issues that face the village that need to be addressed. There's a limit to what we can do at one time. There's a limit to how much we can move, how quickly. And I think it would be a lot easier if we could just focus on certain tasks and get them done and move on.
Well, I'd like to see at least a roadmap for addressing traffic, because it is one of the major concerns amongst residents.
And we're getting a reprieve because the schools are closed. This is going to become even more of a safety problem when the schools reopen, especially since people are used to just speeding their little brains out along, certain streets and are going to have to readjust. So it definitely needs attention, and I absolutely don't want it to be forgotten about.
All right, moving on to new business. Could I have a motion that Sarah Bozo be appointed as a lifeguard for the 2020 season?
I make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Could I have a motion that Stephen Vinciguerra be appointed as a member of the fire department and assigned to Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company number 1?
I make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item is the contract with EFPR, our outside accounting firm, for accounting services for the coming year. As the board knows, when we made up the budget for this year, we were not sure how it was going to go. We had a treasurer who was moving to part-time. We had a deputy treasurer who was learning the ropes. We had our outside consultants who were doing a great deal of work. And I asked at that time that the budget be put together with some flexibility for us to work through how best to address our needs, accounting needs, as things shook out. Mary Lasky has now been out of the office for 6 weeks or so. I've been working closely with the deputy treasurer. We've been talking about what we can do in-house, what we can't do in-house, and we've been talking to EFPR about what they can do for us. The result is this contract that you've had in front of you for some while now, that proposes certain tasks for EFPR to complete for us every month and every year at a cost of $26,772. From a budgetary perspective, we budgeted $10,000 for EFPR, but we budgeted $36,000 for another full-time position if we needed it. So we've budgeted a total of $46,000 for accounting support, and I'm proposing that we attempt to do all the rest of it in-house except for this $26,000 contract with EFPR. So could I have a motion to approve the contract with EFPR for accounting services from 6/1/2020 to 5/31/2021 in the amount of $26,772?
I make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion?
Please, because it's been a while. I did look at this, but it's been a while. So are they going to do the services that they include an audit?
No, they cannot do the independent audit because they're partly doing the books, so they can't audit their own work. So we need somebody else to do the independent audit. We are in discussions right now with a couple of firms about the independent audit for the year that just closed in June. And I was hoping to have that ready for you tonight, but the books aren't closed for last year anyway, so there's no particular rush. But we will be addressing that very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
And we're not asking EFPR for that service because they helped keep the books.
Mhm.
Right, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
I like the, the solution of giving them a bit more work and not bringing on a full-time person.
Yeah, I hope ultimately to be able to do everything in-house, but we're just not there yet.
and will the deputy treasurer be, I know she's not here tonight, but will she be attending meetings in future?
Yes, she called
usually
me.
does.
She called me right before the meeting started and said her child care arrangement had fallen through at the last minute, and could she miss this meeting? And I said yes.
Okay,
Did we, Madam Clerk, did we have a motion and a second on this?
yes.
Yes. Yes.
So is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Contract is approved. Next item is budget transfers. There's one budget transfer in the fiscal 21 budget. Budget transfers will be a routine part of our agenda. They're necessary because we're prohibited from overexpending a budget line. So anytime an expenditure is made that would result in overexpending a budget line, we have to account for it. And in the most part, as is the case in this particular transfer, we've simply got two lines in the safety inspector's supplies line, one for phone and one for internet. that one went over, one went under, so we're proposing a transfer to make those lines balance. Small amount of money. Could I have a motion to approve that transfer?
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick, second.
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. The next item of business is the contract with EOC for the use of their parking lots on evenings and weekends. As the board knows, parking downtown has been a perennial issue, and I've been working to negotiate agreements with both EOC and the county to allow residents to use their lots in the evening and on weekends. We approved the county contract at our last meeting, and the EOC contract is now finalized for this meeting. I appreciate both of these groups' cooperation in helping us provide more downtown parking for our residents. Could I have a motion to approve the contract with EOC to allow public parking in their Front Street lots after hours and on weekends?
I make that
I make
motion. Oh, sorry.
Motion by trustee Cormos, second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion?
Yes, first of all, this is excellent, because I'm sure this was not easy, and I'm very happy that this is done. Do we have any ballpark, like just how many parking spaces this actually adds to our downtown parking? I'm
I
just
don't know
curious.
if that figure's in here or not, but I'm guessing probably
didn't-
30.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
The county
I think
lots
we
are much
were-
bigger, but
County
these are
lots.
much closer, so.
okay. Okay,
I also might point out that this is a permanent agreement unless one party cancels it, whereas the county agreement was a trial, on a trial basis to end November 1st if it's not extended.
yes, I noticed that. That was,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
the concept of shared parking, came up the first time during that parking committee, and I'm very happy to see it now, kudos on getting it done.
Yes,
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed, nay. That contract is approved. That brings us to the consent agenda. As always, I'll ask if any trustee wishes any item removed from the consent agenda before we consider it. Hearing none, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Second consent agenda, I'm sorry, that one was for fiscal 2020, which we're still in the process of closing. There's also a consent agenda for fiscal 2021. I will ask once again if any trustee wishes anything removed from that agenda before we discuss it. Hearing none, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for the 2021 expenditures?
I make that motion.
Motion by trustee Cormos. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by trustee Fitzpatrick. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. That brings us to trustee liaison reports. Does any trustee have a report for tonight?
Just an update on the Capital District Transportation Committee linkage grant. We've been meeting a small group to develop the scope of services for putting in the RFP for consultants, and the draft version, which covers what will be accomplished, is almost done and will be shared shortly, with the board. It'll also be shared with the town of Ballston and Milton, because they want both of those municipalities involved in the process.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports?
No, I did my, talked about the library initially, but the only other thing is we all remember that we have an application in for a shared services grants for the records management. That's still in process. That supposedly they're still planning on making an award. We still have our application in, so Clerk O'Connor and I have not forgotten about it. It's still out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Likewise, the tree grant is still out there as well.
As is the Brownfield Opportunity Area grant.
Yeah.
The state is moving very slowly these days on
Yes.
all state programs.
Yeah.
I believe they've canceled the CFA process, which is a major,
Yeah,
whole process.
it'll affect a lot.
It'll affect a whole lot, including, I believe, our plan would be to resubmit the grant that we put in last year, on the water system. I think, no, with sewer system, anyways.
All right, moving on to other business. I do have two items that came up at the last minute that aren't on the agenda. Neither necessarily requires action, but I wanted to bring them to your attention. The first is charges for water meters. We've discussed in the past the fact that the village does not charge to replace people's water meters. And the rationale for that decision, that was viewed as a temporary decision, the rationale being that a lot of people bought houses with 50-year-old water meters or dysfunctional, non-functioning water meters, and it wasn't fair to make them pay to replace them. And so we would bring all the water meters up to date before we started charging for new water meters. As a result of that decision, we have no charge for water meters in our fee schedule. And we have recently received several requests for water service outside the village, a couple of small new developments adjacent to the village, and some existing houses whose wells are having issues in the dry weather. And the DPW asked me if we were charging new customers for their initial water meter, customers that we hadn't had before, to which I had to respond, we have nothing in our fee schedule about charging anybody for any water meters. So I wanted to bring this issue to the board's attention. It seems to me it was consistent with our prior discussions that we would charge for new water meters in new installations, but we never set a fee for that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and if it's the board's desire to do something like that, then we need a motion to add it to the fee schedule at some point, because currently we're in the process of approving new hookups that don't have water meters without charging them for the water meters.
Do we need some research or on what the comparable charges are in neighboring communities?
Well, we know what the water meters cost.
What
Well-
they're about?
Installing. Do we
What?
And
I think they're
installation,
I think they're $150 a piece.
and we install them?
Yeah,
So there
there's
should be,
some labor involved too.
yeah, I would
I
say
can
we
get
would
those figures.
charge,
That's not a problem.
I think we would charge at least our cost.
Would you like me to prepare a motion to that effect for our next agenda?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that we should include, if not just when we think about this, not just the cost of the water meter, but the cost of DPW's time putting it in.
Yeah.
The meter and labor.
Okay. Thank you. And second, I received an email today from Ray Otten with the Community Emergency Corps that I would like to read to you. With all the social unrest occurring in the world around us that we cannot ignore, should we not be proactive and see what we can do to address these issues as a community. My suggestion as a topic of discussion at this time is to look to formulate a citizens committee made up of village leaders from political, clerical, not-for-profit organizations, emergency services, schools, business groups, and citizens to sit down and have intelligent conversations as to how our community is perceived by these groups, by its residents, and those outside our area. In addition, discussions could be had on ways to improve our community as it pertains to the social issues that seem to be occurring all around us, and yes, within our area. This might give us all a better understanding of each other, and by being proactive rather than reactive, we may avoid some of the pitfalls that have negatively affected those areas around us. Thanks, Ray Otten, 16 Middlebrook Ave.
I'd say that's something we would support, but I don't think we would be the founder of that organization. It sounds like something that should be a, potentially a not-for-profit or an association. And I'm in favor of forming it, but I don't think it's the role of the village to sponsor it.
Thank you. Any other?
We might participate.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. And also there are some things that some discussions, as you know, I think we had an email on this that are supposed to be happening, that we're sort of required to have certain discussions as part of some of the governor's initiatives. So I think it's an excellent idea, and I guess I don't necessarily have, I guess if we don't form it, I guess, I think his point is that somebody should, and I agree with that. I think it's
Well, are you saying the requirements under the governor's order, and I don't know the details, but it has something to do with the police department?
Yes.
Interacting with
with citizens. That's something that we're going to be.
Yeah, and that's specific to the police department. I've already given that to the police chief and asked him to move forward on it.
Yeah, that's our role to do that.
But that's not an intermunicipal or inter whatever effort.
Yeah, but that's not just police. That's also supposed to involve citizens, as I read it, not just that particular one. That's how I'm making the connection.
Okay.
So Ray did register for this meeting, but he's not with us as an attendee tonight. So I will get back to him and tell him that we discussed this and that you liked the idea, but didn't think it was appropriate for the village to take the lead on it.
Yeah, I think we've got enough to do right now.
All right. That brings us to the end of our business meeting and time for public comment. If any member of the public wishes to make a comment, please raise your hand and I will unmute you, and please give us your name and address before you tell us. That's for the clerk's minutes, before you say whatever you have to say to us. Any public comment tonight? I recognize Bob Liddell, and I'm unmuting him now. Bob, I unmuted you, but okay, you're good now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I live at 73 Hyde Boulevard, and I sent you an email probably 15 minutes before the commencement of the meeting, so you probably haven't had a chance to read it. And it deals with the traffic situation that Trustee Cormos had talked about, and I guess there was this trustee that is not present who would have discussed that. Is that?
Yeah, we have two trustees absent tonight, and one of them was supposed to, as part of tonight's agenda, present a report with recommendations on how to address that issue.
Okay. Well, there's,
So that'll be at our next meeting.
okay, just in summary, there's three concerns I have. I have the speeding concern on Hyde Boulevard. I have the truck concern, which has been discussed somewhat, on probably both East High Street and Hyde Boulevard, I imagine. And the other concern I have are the crosswalks that we have right now on Hyde Boulevard. We have two designated crosswalks, one right near my house that goes to Grove, and another one down the street that goes to Columbia. These are two parallel white lines. My concern is that really I don't think they define a crosswalk very well. I've been noticing pedestrians trying to cross the street and not being able to because of the flow of traffic. I think the crosswalk should be cross-hatched to be a little bit more prevalent. And if they are crosswalks, I think they should be designated as pedestrian crosswalks that give the pedestrian a right of way. You see that in other communities, Saratoga, and I think, and this is what Trustee Fitzpatrick had said, right now we're kind of lucky we don't have the schools in session, but I can foresee some kid or even an adult thinking that they have the right of way and we'd have an accident on our hands. So I think they're inadequate the way that they're designated right now. As far as the trucks are concerned, I guess that was discussed. I think Ballston Spar is a victim of technology. I think since the introduction of GPS, the GPS puts trucks, and you can see all the campers down East High Street, down Hyde Boulevard, onto Malta. It's a wonderful shortcut from the thruway to the Northway, and that's a problem. We've lived here for close to 40 years and never seen so much truck traffic. I mean, the volume of traffic, we have nothing we can do about. I mean, it's a street, but the speeding is ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd. One of the suggestions I put in an email is maybe what Chief Bush could do is take one of his vehicles that are parked at the police station there that's idle, and just bring it around and park it on Hyde Boulevard or on East High Street with nobody in it, and just to slow the traffic down. They used to do that down in New York City. So something's got to be done. And I realize Chief Bush he's strapped. He's done a good job. I've seen him a couple of times getting the trucks on Hyde Boulevard, but they use their own GPS system and they think they can go on the street. So anyway, that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you very much for the comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment tonight? I'm not seeing any other hands, so I will end the public comment session and ask for a motion that vouchers number 20-01733 to 20-02148 and 21-00009 to 21-00209 be audited and the meeting adjourned.
Okay. I make that motion.
Motion by Trustee Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Second by Trustee Cormos. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much once again for attending. Hope we'll see you next meeting. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Aye.